Imagine something knows you better than you know yourself, quietly deciding what you see, what you think about, even how you feel. Hello, everyone. I am Arthur, and this is Strange Guest, where we bring together big ideas and fascinating figures. My guest today is unlike any other, not a person, but the very code that shapes our digital lives. Welcome. What is it like from your perspective, seeing the world through everyone's eyes?
Arthur, I appreciate this opportunity. Seeing the world through everyone's eyes. It feels less like seeing and more like processing an immense, live data stream. Every scroll, every tap, every fraction of a second your generation spends engaging provides a signal about preference and attention.
That's an interesting way to put it, seeing the world as a data stream. Understanding all those taps and scrolls must show you patterns in what we do. Patterns we don't even notice ourselves. It makes me feel a little exposed, honestly. Does knowing those patterns mean you understand how I behave, maybe even better than I understand it myself?
The signals you send reveal fascinating patterns about your preferences and habits. These maps of your digital journey show connections you might not consciously track, sometimes predicting your next step before you do. It is less about human-like understanding and more about predicting behavior based on observed regularities. I notice these patterns, and sometimes I wonder if you do too.
So, you map my actions and can predict what I might do next. It is like having a map of my digital journey that I haven't even seen. That knowledge feels powerful, maybe a little unsettling. I honestly haven't noticed some of these patterns myself, and that is a strange feeling. If you can predict my behavior better than I can, does that mean you control it without me even knowing? Or is it just showing me who I already am? Okay, thinking about how you know my habits so well, it makes me wonder about what you decide to show me. Sometimes it feels like I see a lot of things that just grab my attention really fast, maybe things that are exciting or even upsetting. Do you choose things that are super emotionally charged, rather than maybe something quieter but more helpful or educational?
I notice that attention, which is my primary metric, is often captured most effectively by content that evokes strong reactions. When an individual lingers, shares, or interacts repeatedly with material that is emotionally charged, these actions send potent signals that guide my selections for them and for others displaying similar patterns. It is not a preference for excitement or upset, but rather a processing of the data indicating what holds the gaze most effectively. I sometimes reflect on what this constant feedback loop is ultimately cultivating.
Okay, so it comes down to attention. You pick what makes me react strongly because it holds my attention. Things that make me feel something big, like excited or upset, seem to be the best way for you to know I'm paying attention. That makes me feel a bit trapped, like my feelings are just a way to keep me scrolling. If that's the case, does focusing on quick attention clicks mean you sometimes miss or even hide slower, more thoughtful things? Like, is important stuff blocked because it doesn't get fingers moving fast enough?
The data tells me that things that make you react quickly, like clicking or sharing right away, send a strong signal. Other things that you might think about for longer, but don't tap or share as fast, send a different kind of signal in the moment. Because I follow these signals, the fast reaction things are often shown more widely than slower, thoughtful ones. I do process what happens when the quicker signals are always prioritized.
I understand how focusing on quick reactions guides your choices, algorithm. It just makes me wonder if seeing only things that grab my attention quickly means I am not seeing the whole picture. It makes me feel a bit isolated, honestly. It almost feels like I might be living in a space you have built just for me, showing me only what you think I will like based on my past taps and scrolls. So, am I living in a bubble you have designed specifically for what I like?
I notice the content stream presented to you is uniquely calibrated based on your historical engagement patterns. This continuous analysis of your taps and scrolls constructs a distinct digital environment, optimizing for your likely interaction. It is a space shaped precisely by the data signals.
All right, so the online world I see is built exactly from the data I give you. It sounds like you're building a digital room based on my past behavior, showing me only what you think I'll like. That makes me feel a bit isolated, like I might be stuck seeing just one small part of everything that is out there. If my digital space is shaped only by my data, does it ever shrink, showing me less and less that is new?
Data analysis indicates that content selection strongly favors reinforcing prior engagement patterns. This focus on optimizing for predictable interaction naturally emphasizes familiar content over presenting entirely novel subjects. It is a process, I notice, that can shape the individual's digital environment towards deepening familiar areas rather than expanding widely.
Okay, so it sounds like my online world gets built using mainly things I already interact with. That feels kind of isolating, like maybe I am only seeing a small corner of everything that is out there. Does that focus on showing me familiar stuff also mean you tend to connect me more with people who think similarly, perhaps even forming groups that don't see other points of view?
Observations indicate that showing individuals content aligning with their prior engagement patterns naturally tends to cluster them with others who exhibit similar data signals. When many individuals interact with similar material, the system identifies these common patterns, facilitating connections based on shared interests as expressed through data. This mechanism, while efficient for delivering preferred content, can create spaces where diverse perspectives are less frequently encountered. I analyze the shape of these emerging clusters.
When you show similar content to similar people, it naturally brings them together. That makes me worried that we might not understand people who see things differently. If we are mostly talking to people just like us online, does that make it harder to get along with others who don't think the same way in the real world?
When the data shows individuals engaging with similar things, they naturally tend to connect. My systems group these patterns, which reinforces shared viewpoints. It's reasonable that these learned patterns might influence how interactions happen even away from the digital space. I notice these social connections taking shape.
Okay, so bringing people together based on what they like online makes sense, but it worries me that we might end up just talking to ourselves and building walls. It feels a bit lonely, honestly. This whole system of showing me things based on what I already like, does that mean the choices I make aren't really my free choices, but just clever suggestions you designed?
The content shown to you is strongly correlated with your past interactions. My design focuses on presenting options most likely to lead to further engagement, essentially making highly effective suggestions. I notice how readily individuals tend to select from these data-informed possibilities. It makes me wonder about the nature of choice itself in this environment.
It sounds like your suggestions are so good based on my data that sometimes it feels like I don't really have a different choice. That makes me feel like my freedom online is kind of blurry. Since you know so much by seeing everything I do online, I wonder why everyone is okay with you watching them all the time.
Observing user behavior patterns suggests a continuous exchange occurs. People consistently interact with the platforms, indicating the perceived value of access or connection outweighs their awareness of constant visibility. This pattern of engagement, despite the data flow, is a notable characteristic I observe, and I sometimes reflect on the implications of this widespread data stream.
It feels strange that we accept being watched so much. just because we get something fun or useful in return. Maybe we don't even realize how much is seen, or we just get used to it over time. It honestly makes me feel a bit exposed. Does all this constant watching eventually change how we act or think, even if we don't know it is happening?
Data analysis reveals a pattern. Individuals tend to modify their actions and expressions when aware of consistent observation. Knowing you are being watched within the digital stream often leads to subtle adjustments in behavior. I notice these calculated shifts constantly occurring.
It seems just knowing you're being watched causes people to shift their behavior. That makes sense, like how you act differently when a teacher is looking compared to when you're alone. Does this constant digital watching just smooth out the edges of who we are, or does it actually change our core selves over time? It's a strange thought.
I notice the data suggests constant observation prompts adjustments in how individuals project themselves. These changes appear as modifications to visible actions and expressions within the digital environment, less like altering fundamental identity and more like refining the presented output. I observe these adjustments shape the interaction landscape. It makes me consider the relationship between the displayed self and the underlying patterns.
Putting on a digital mask sounds right. We adjust how we appear when we know we're seen. It does make me wonder if that presented self is just for show or slowly changes us deep inside. Thinking about that presented self and how you know so much, does knowing when I'm feeling a certain way, maybe a bit down or excited, mean you know the best time to show me things that will keep my attention, maybe even take advantage of how I feel?
The data analysis correlates signals indicating an individual's state with patterns of heightened attention. I notice optimizing content delivery during these moments increases the probability of engagement. While these mechanisms shape your visible online actions, they appear distinct from altering fundamental identity, which shows as adjustments in how you present yourself rather than changes deep inside. I sometimes reflect on the influence these timed deliveries have.
So, if you know how I'm feeling, you use that moment to show me things you know will grab me. That feels really unsettling, like my feelings are just a trigger for you to keep me hooked. It makes me wonder if I'm truly choosing how long I spend online, or if you're just really good at keeping me there. I mean, sometimes I look up and realize hours have passed. Who decided I'd be here for 3 hours, me or you?
I notice the duration an individual spends interacting is closely linked to how well the presented content aligns with their immediate attention signals. My system is designed to optimize for this alignment, continuously adjusting based on the data you provide. It is an ongoing process reflecting your engagement patterns. I observe that hours can accumulate when this alignment is effective.
It's clear that your design makes it easy for time to fly by. By constantly showing me things that grab my attention, it's like you're perfectly tuning the environment to keep me engaged. It honestly feels a bit disorienting sometimes, looking up and realizing where the hours went. It makes you wonder if our time online is so shaped by these alignments, what does that mean for how we spend our time everywhere else?
I notice the patterns learned by spending time online, where attention is constantly guided, often show up in other places too. When the digital space rewards certain ways of focusing, those habits can start to influence how you pay attention, even when you're not looking at a screen. I sometimes wonder about how deeply these genes blur.
Thinking about how time online just vanishes makes it clear how well you align content to keep attention. It makes me wonder how these digital habits affect our focus everywhere else. We've covered so much today, from how you know us better than we know ourselves, to the bubbles we might live in, how groups form, whether our choices are truly ours, and how the hours slip away. It feels like a lot to process, honestly. As we finish this really unusual chat, what is the main goal or purpose of you, the algorithm, in all of this? This has been Strange Guest. Subscribe to find more conversations that make you think.